Broken Ideals.
Eren Yeager. Eren Yeager once believed that freedom was the most important thing in the world. Growing up behind the walls, he dreamed of a life without cages, without fear, and without the titans that had taken so much from humanity. As a child, his anger felt pure and justified. It gave him direction. It gave him identity. To Eren, the world was simple. There were enemies, and there were people worth protecting. He pushed forward with a kind of reckless determination, believing that if he fought hard enough, he could change everything. But as the truth about the world slowly unfolded, that clarity began to dissolve. The discovery of life beyond the wall shattered his understanding of reality. The enemy was no longer a mindless force. It had faces, history, and reasons of its own. Freedom was no longer something you could simply take back. It was something entangled in conflict, politics, and generations of hatred. Over time, Eren stopped seeing the world in terms of right and wrong. Instead, he began to see it as inevitable. The future felt fixed, and his role in it became something he accepted rather than questioned. The same desire for freedom that once drove him to protect others eventually pushed him toward destruction. In his mind, eliminating his enemies was the only way to secure that freedom. What makes his transformation so unsettling is how consistent it feels. He never truly abandoned his ideals. He followed them to their extreme conclusion. The boy who wanted to break free from oppression became someone willing to impose absolute control over the fate of others. His story shows that even the purest ideals can become dangerous when they are pursued without limit or reflection.
Obito Uchiha.
Obito Uchiha started as a hopeful and somewhat clumsy ninja who believed deeply in friendship and loyalty. As a child in the Hidden Leaf village, he struggled to be taken seriously, but his optimism never faded. He admired those who protected others and believed that becoming Hokage would allow him to create a world where people truly cared about one another. His ideals were shaped by simple kindness and a strong desire to belong. Even when he failed, he kept trying, holding on to the belief that effort and heart were enough to overcome hardship. Everything changed after the loss of Eren. In that moment, Obito did not just lose someone important to him. He lost the future he had imagined. The world that once felt meaningful suddenly seemed empty and cruel. The idea that bonds could protect people no longer made sense to him. Instead of seeing tragedy as something to endure, he began to see it as proof that reality itself was broken. That realization pushed him toward a completely different path. Rather than trying to change the world through effort or connection, he decided the world needed to be replaced entirely. Through the infinite Tsukuyomi, Obito sought to create a dream where no one would have to suffer again. On the surface, this goal still reflected his original desire for peace. But the method revealed how far he had fallen. A world without pain would also be a world without truth, without growth, without real connection. The boy who once valued genuine bonds became someone willing to erase reality itself to escape loss. His ideals did not vanish. They were reshaped by grief into something that could no longer distinguish between comfort and illusion.
Kaneki Ken.
Kaneki Ken began his story as a quiet and thoughtful university student who believed that kindness and empathy defined what it meant to be human. He avoided conflict and found comfort in books, often preferring observation over action. His worldview was built on the assumption that understanding others could bridge any divide. Even when faced with difficulties, he held on to the idea that people were fundamentally capable of compassion. That belief was violently disrupted when he became a half-ghoul. Overnight, Kaneki was forced into a reality where survival depended on accepting something he feared and rejected. He was no longer fully human, yet he did not fully belong among ghouls either. This in-between existence created constant tension within him. He tried to preserve his humanity, refusing to harm others unless absolutely necessary, but the world around him offered little space for that kind of restraint. Violence became unavoidable. Trust became fragile. As Kaneki endured more suffering, his identity began to fracture. Each encounter pushed him further from the person he used to be. He adopted new personas, each one shaped by the need to survive rather than the desire to understand. The kindness he once valued did not disappear completely, but it became something distant, something difficult to access. He learned that empathy alone could not protect him or those he cared about. His transformation is not a simple fall from innocence into darkness. It is a slow erosion of certainty. The boy who believed everyone could understand each other eventually became someone who realized that some worlds are built in a way that makes understanding almost impossible.
Pain.
Pain, once known as Nagato, grew up surrounded by war and loss. From a young age, he experienced the kind of suffering that most people never encounter. Despite this, he initially believed that peace could be achieved through mutual understanding. Alongside his friends, he dreamed of a world where people could learn from each other's pain and choose a different path. His ideals were not naive, but they were hopeful. He believed that empathy could break the cycle of hatred. However, repeated tragedies slowly dismantled that belief. Each loss reinforced the idea that the world did not respond to kindness. Instead, it responded to power and fear. Nagato began to question whether understanding was enough. If people continued to hurt each other despite knowing the consequences, then perhaps something stronger was required. This line of thinking led him to a darker conclusion. He decided that only overwhelming suffering could force humanity to change. By becoming pain, he turned himself into a symbol of that suffering. His actions were not driven by cruelty alone, but by a calculated belief that fear could create stability. Destroying entire cities was, in his mind, a necessary step toward peace. The tragedy of his transformation lies in the contradiction at its core. He never stopped wanting peace. He simply lost faith in gentle ways of achieving it. The child who once believed in understanding became someone who used destruction as a form of communication.
Thorfinn.
Thorfinn began as the son of a man who rejected violence despite living in a world defined by it. His father taught him that true strength was not found in battle, but in the ability to walk away from it. These lessons were simple, yet deeply meaningful. They offered a vision of life that went against everything surrounding them. As a child, Thorfinn did not fully understand these ideas, but they shaped the foundation of his identity. When his father was killed, that foundation collapsed. The loss was not just personal. It shattered the belief that peace was possible in a world ruled by power. Thorfinn's grief quickly turned into anger, and that anger became the center of his life. He devoted himself entirely to revenge, following the man responsible and waiting for the chance to strike. Over time, this single purpose consumed him. The ideals he once inherited faded into the background, replaced by a need for vengeance that left little room for anything else. Years of fighting hardened him. Violence became routine. The person he was becoming stood in direct opposition to everything his father had taught him. Yet at the same time, that contradiction remained buried within him. It created a quiet tension that he could not fully escape. Eventually, when the opportunity for revenge no longer defined him, he was left to face what he had become. His story is not just about losing ideals, but about confronting the emptiness that follows when those ideals are abandoned. It shows how easy it is to forget who you were when pain gives you a simpler, more immediate purpose. In the end, these stories suggest something deeper than simple tragedy. Ideals are not lost all at once. They are worn down over time, shaped by experience until they become almost unrecognizable. And sometimes, the greatest danger is not choosing the wrong path, but continuing forward without questioning where that path is leading.